Hello, hey, this is Ali and Michael from ALTA Racks. We are here. This is first video for assembly of the ARCYLON rack. First and foremost, the tools you're gonna need. Michael's gonna go over what size tooling that we're using for this assembly.
We have two 15/16 wrench which are going to be used for the 5/8 bolt, and then we have two 9/16 wrenches, which is going to be used for everything else. And then we also have an Allen wrench key that is used for the bullets.
And the spacers, the wheel spacers, yeah. We showing you these tools, but we are going to use a driver just to speed things up. This assembly can take upwards of an hour. It's just like so many bolts, and now we're going to go over that because this is all hardware driven. It's kind of bolted together, so that's the system design as well. And Michael's going to go over what bolts we're using and then the counts. So this way you can lay these out just like this and make sure you have the correct parts and the number of parts correct.
So first we have 16 3/8 by 2-inch bolts. I have them laid out in 6, 6, and 4 because of the pieces you use. You'll use them in that segment. You have 6 of the 3/8 by 1.5 inch, which also are laid out in 4 and 2 for separate pieces. And then lastly, we have our 6 3/8 by 1 inch, which are separated by 4 and 2. And then we also have these 8 3/8 by 1 inch bolts, but they don't have the nuts, they just have a single washer. And then we have our 6 5/8 by 2.5 inch.
Nice. All right, the first step to the assembly, we start with the base. That's what this part is called. It's the base. You have the ramp mounts. You should have 2 of these, and Michael is going to show us how to assemble these. What bolt are we going to use, Michael?
We're going to use the 3/8 by 1.5 inch.
Okay.
And then you want to leave these very loose.
Yeah, we basically just want everything loose, so because this thing is kind of fitted together first and then tightened. There's just so much of precision in here and tolerances that it makes the job a lot easier if you just kind of not tighten everything super tight. And then we'll show you where that time is, tighten things down. So there's a washer used on both sides, on the nut side and on the bolt side. Same thing here. Next is the step, what we call a step. It's the skin. It's the largest part pretty much. It says the ALTA Racks in front. So you're going to line these up. And there's 4 holes in the front and 4 holes in the back. So don't try to line up all those 4 holes at once. You really just trying to line up a couple of holes just to get the alignment correctly. And there's got threaded internals here. So what that means is you don't need a nut on this. It's just a washer and a bolt. So Michael is putting one on each, on the outsides, just to get that alignment right. Self-adjust it with your hand. You can see these are loose to allow for the movement of the skin or the step. And they should thread all the way by hand pretty easily. I mean, that wrenching of this is really the last part, but it's really important to keep everything just loose. I'm gonna help him out here to speed things up. So basically, we got another one here. I'm gonna use my hand, one-handed if I can. There it is. And they just thread on. It's really cool because the internal threading in the tubing, that's like a proprietary system that we use to create threads inside tubes. It's pretty cool.
next we're just gonna flip this.
So you're gonna take the step and the main body, the base. You have the ramp mounts, side ramp mounts on there. Everything's loose. And then at this point, grab the 1x3s that are welded together. This is the rear. So you need to decide at this point where you want to mount this, depending if you want the handlebar on the driver's side or on the passenger side. So let's go over that real quick. The way that Michael is putting it in right now, if this is your hitch that you're going to plug in, so imagine it's going to be rotated the other way. This is going to put the rear on the driver's side, which means the handle will be in the passenger side. If you have a van, you may want to rotate this differently, because having the handlebars on the passenger side, which is your primary door, will make it hard to open, versus if you have it on the driver's side, the doors will open somewhat and give you that access. So what size bolts are you using here?
These are the 3/8 by 2-inch bolts.
Okay, so we're just using the 3/8 by 2-inch bolts here and just hand tightening them again.
And each side's gonna take 6 bolts, 3 on each side, and then 3 on each side on the other side as well.
So you kind of got to get your hand in there and try to get this camera in and show you. But the holes are lined up. You can see them on this side. It's going to be exact same holes on this side. And that's what Michael is really doing, is getting the bolts in and hand threading them in. The nylock will stop at a certain point because that's the design. It's supposed to take some force and it creates a grab, but we're still going to keep everything pretty loose. So we're doing that side right now. Let's see, if the rear is on this side, when you rotate it and plug it in, it's going to put the rear on the passenger side. Oh, okay, I misspoken. So the current setup, if you do it this way, so for vans, if you do it this way, you will get
rear tire on the passenger side.
That's right. I don't think well upside down. So Michael was here to correct me. I appreciate that. By the way, Michael is his first year in ME. He's got a full ride to BYU. He's like a super smart guy. We're glad he's here. So the separate parts are going to be always the front tire mounting. So you just basically slide them in place. You'll see the hole alignments. You may not have this many holes. Actually, the new product will not have this many holes. We don't need it. You're only going to have 3. 1, 2, 3 here. You're going to have 2 for your stiffener right there. And you will have these 2 for now, but we may reduce this to 1 once we figure it out. But again, you're going to have 3 adjustments. What these are, the 3 hole, is for you to be able to move the swing arms back and forth, adjusting for different wheelbases. So what are we doing here, Michael?
We're just doing what we did on the other side, attaching the 3/8 by 2-inch bolts.
Yep,
There's
washer
3
on each
of them
side,
on each
right? So this really works good when you have it upside down on a good table like this. As you can see, he's putting them one by one. This takes long, not because it's hard, it's just like there's a lot of bolts on this, and it's by design. It allows you to break it down when you don't need it, and then it also allows you to really adjust that wheelbase size for different bikes. I mean, you could put a mountain bike on here all the way to a 300-pound dirt bike, which we do all the time, including your Surons and your Roars and your other electric motorcycles and electric vehicles, 2-wheel vehicles. So anywhere there's a hole, you're gonna get that, and you're not gonna have this through hole here potentially for the future. You're only gonna have a through hole in the rear. So diamond will be blocked at this point. So these are some changes that we made. This is just the current product that we have. Everything else is in build or in powder coat or is sold. But this will give you a pretty good idea what needs to happen. So you're using 2-inch bolts to go through all of those 1x3s, which this is what we consider the 1x3s right here, the tubes. These are separate. So next is the stiffener. So that stiffens it. It's pretty self-explanatory. But the direction here, it really depends, because you want to put, yes, actually we want to put it this way, because that gives us a more of a spacing allowing for the scoop to freely move rather than having it close to it. And it puts the stiffening function even further out. But this basically connects the two legs and creates that stiff, takes any kind of rotational force out. What size bolts are we using here?
These are also going to be the 3/8 by 2-inch bolts.
Okay, 2-inch bolts. Again, as always, washer on each side and a nylock knot that will come with this. And that gets 4 bolts. So next step is to actually tighten everything. The only place where you got to be careful when you tighten things is on these tubes, because they're aluminum. And you can really warp these if you crank with the wrench. So let's try this one. Michael is going to show you. Once you get the body, that's about it. You don't want to go any further than that, or you're going to get some warping there. If you start seeing warping, stop. So we're going to repeat that across for all these aluminum. We highly recommend using hand tools rather than drills or drivers. I mean, we use those items here all the time, so we're used to the torquing, the sound, and everything else. But if you're putting this together first time, take your time and really just do this by hand, because you can warp these. I mean, it's not going to damage them, but you know, why let something like that ruin a product as far as aesthetically goes. Okay, we have tightened most of this stuff down. Everything's stiff, everything's in there except the ramp mounts we wanted to show you. So start with the rear, or the one that's closest to the where the vehicle plugs into. Get those nice and tight. Nice. And get those nice and stiff. That pretty much covers all the bolts and nuts. Next step, we are gonna mount the swing arm and the scoop and the ramp. That's the final, and then get to use it. Again, use hand tools, not power tools. Highly recommend not using power tools when you're assembling this. We're just doing it for the speed because we do it a lot. Okay, so we flip the body over. You can see the ramp mounts in the front. We don't have the face on it yet, but basically it's time to get these swing arms in and the scoop. So this is the front, as you can see, because it has the, well, the scoop only gets the front, gets the scoop, and you also have these tire spacers that are going to be loose, that are sliding. You set these to the width of your tires. You're going to have 4 of these included. and you could purchase more. Sometimes you want to put them in the rear. You know, when I run the Suron, I do put them in the rear, but they're not really necessary. So we are gonna provide you with 4 of these, because really the front wheel is where you want to lock it, so you don't get any kind of rotation. There is no rotation in the rear. So this really helps with that rotation. So Michael is going to show us what's the next step, Michael.
We're going to put on the scoop.
Okay.
And so all these bolts have 2 washers and a
poly washer. Yeah, that's for, so you don't, it takes out the friction against, you're not rubbing against the paint or the powder coat here, and it allows it to rotate because they have a little bit of self-lubricating characteristic. And we're going to put the bolts from the inside. Actually, this is one thing you want to remember, is put all the bolts, and we're going to set it up on the top one, because if you drop it down, it's going to drop the wheel down, and it's going to potentially protrude it below. So, and we're still playing with that to see where we need the bottom one. We think there's going to be a case where you need the bottom one. I think smaller wheels, so it's kind of counterintuitive when you do have smaller wheels, is to set this up on the bottom one, but most of the time you're gonna put it on top. I think with 20-inch wheels, if you're gonna use, like, if you had like a small electric bike that had fat 20-inch wheels that you were gonna put on this rack, then you would potentially mount it to the bottom, but right now we're gonna mount it to the top. Michael is repeating that process just over here again, and he's gonna tighten everything down. So we're gonna use our 15/16 wrench to really tighten these down, but you're not making them so tight where these can't move, because the concept of rotation is part of this scoop. This scoop is designed to rotate using those poly washers to kind of glide across. So this will set your wheel. So this is, you can see that. So we turn this sideways like this to give you a better view, actually. And you do want this to rotate, so you're not making it super tight, but Michael's gonna show us. Same thing on this side. So how tight is too tight? If you can't move it back and forth, then it's too tight, but you still want some good resistance, so when the wheel goes in there, this thing's not flopping. You're still gonna leave these loose until the end, because you're really setting these to the tire of the each individual bike, so those can be loose in there. They got the hex bolts in there that you can adjust at the time of need. So we're gonna put the swing arm in. As you can see, he's kind of setting it up where he's got the poly on the side, which he's gonna mate to the inside of that bar like that, and then get the bolt in. Same thing on the other side. You're gonna repeat this. And then you're basically going to tighten everything down. Again, you want your rotation to be soft but yet stiff, and then repeat for the other side. Where you place that hole is really depending on your wheelbase. You can run your bike on here first to see where that wheelbase needs to be, but furthest out is going to be a full-size dirt bike. We found that about third hole in on both sides is going to cover your Surons and similar bikes there.